Right now, there's a type of fat inside your body that your doctor has almost certainly never shown you on a scan. You can't pinch it. You can't see it in the mirror. You can't feel it, but it's there, wrapped around your liver, packed around your kidneys, squeezing your pancreas. And unlike the fat you can see on your arms or your belly, this fat isn't sitting quietly. Scientists don't even call it stored fat anymore. They call it a rogue organ, because that's exactly what it is. It's biologically active 24 hours a day, producing inflammatory chemicals, releasing hormones that disrupt your insulin and your cortisol, and quietly accelerating cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and metabolic breakdown, all while you feel completely fine. Here's what makes this genuinely alarming. You don't have to be overweight to have dangerous levels of it. Thin people have it. Active people have it. People who eat reasonably well have it, because visceral fat doesn't respond to the same signals as regular fat. It accumulates in response to specific daily habits. And, this is the important part, it melts in response to specific daily habits. This is the longevity report, and today we're counting down the 7 most evidence-backed daily habits that research shows directly target visceral fat in adults over 60. Stay with us all the way to number 1, because the habit at the top of this list produced a 14% reduction in visceral fat in a landmark 2026 study made without changing what people ate, without a gym, without a single medication. Just one daily timing change. We'll get there. But first, drop a comment right now. Do you carry weight around your middle, even though the rest of your body feels relatively trim? That's the profile of visceral fat. Tell us yes or no in the comments. We read every single one. Before we go further, everything in this video is grounded in peer-reviewed research from Harvard Medical School, Stanford University, the Mayo Clinic, and the National Institute on Aging, published through 2025 and 2026. This is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for your physician's advice. Always consult your doctor before making changes to your health routine. Here's the quick science behind why visceral fat is so different from the fat you can see. Inside your abdominal cavity, there are 2 completely separate fat compartments. Subcutaneous fat sits just under your skin, largely cosmetic, relatively harmless. Visceral fat sits deep inside, surrounding your organs. 3 things make it uniquely dangerous. It floods your bloodstream with inflammatory chemicals called cytokines around the clock. It feeds directly into your liver through the portal vein, meaning everything it produces hits your liver first. And it releases a hormone called resistin that progressively blocks your insulin receptors, making your cells insulin resistant regardless of what you eat or how much you exercise. That's the metabolic emergency hiding inside a body that looks and feels completely normal. Now let's count down the 7 habits that target it directly. Habit number 7. Interrupt your sitting every single hour. Here's a wake-up call for anyone who thinks they're doing fine because they walk regularly or stay reasonably active. Meet Bernard. Bernard was 72 years old, a retired accountant from suburban Georgia, not overweight by any standard measure. A routine CT scan ordered for an unrelated reason revealed visceral fat levels in the high-risk range. His doctor was surprised. Bernard was shocked. He sat for roughly 9 hours every day. A 2025 study in the American Journal of Physiology found that prolonged sitting directly suppresses an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down fat in your bloodstream. When you sit for extended periods, this enzyme essentially shuts off. Simply replacing 1 hour of sitting with standing or slow walking reactivates it. Bernard stood during every evening television program and walked slowly during commercial breaks. Within 8 weeks, his visceral fat markers had measurably improved. This isn't about vigorous exercise, it's about interrupting the sitting. That's the entire intervention. Habit number 6, eat your largest meal before 2 p.m. We've been told for decades that calories are calories, regardless of when you eat them. The 2025 and 2026 research has definitively closed that debate. A landmark University of Alabama study found that adults over 60 who ate the majority of their daily calories before 2 p.m. showed significantly greater reductions in visceral fat over 12 weeks, even when total calorie intake was identical to a control group eating the same food later in the day. Here's why. Your cortisol follows a daily arc, peaking in the morning and dropping through the afternoon and evening. When cortisol is elevated, it actively directs dietary fat toward visceral storage. Eating your largest meal when cortisol is at its lowest in the evening is the biological equivalent of instructing your body to store everything you just ate directly around your organs. Shift your eating earlier, make breakfast and lunch your substantial meals, make dinner your smallest, same food, better outcome. Habit number 5, hit 25 to 30 grams of soluble fiber every single day. Soluble fiber does something very specific that visceral fat responds to directly. When it reaches your gut, it forms a thick gel that slows glucose absorption and, critically, reduces a hormone called GIP that directly stimulates visceral fat storage after meals. A 2026 Wake Forest University study found that every 10-gram daily increase in soluble fiber was associated with a 3.7% reduction in visceral fat accumulation over 5 years in adults over 60. The richest sources are oats, flaxseed, black beans, Brussels sprouts, avocado, and sweet potatoes. 25 grams from food alone is entirely achievable without any supplementation. Block the GIP hormone daily, your visceral fat levels will reflect it. Habit number 4, protect 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. Poor sleep and visceral fat accumulation are so tightly linked that some researchers have called inadequate sleep the most underappreciated driver of abdominal obesity in older adults. When you sleep fewer than 6 hours, your body produces significantly more ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and significantly less leptin, the satiety hormone. But the visceral fat connection goes deeper than appetite. Sleep deprivation keeps cortisol elevated through the night, and elevated cortisol means continuous visceral fat storage. A 2025 University of Chicago study found that adults over 65 sleeping fewer than 6 hours per night accumulated visceral fat 22% faster than those sleeping 7 to 8 hours, even with identical caloric intake. You can't out-exercise or out-diet chronic sleep deprivation when it comes to visceral fat. For this specific type of fat, sleep isn't optional. It's metabolically essential. Habit number 3, resistance training twice weekly. Muscle tissue is the largest insulin-sensitive tissue in your body. The more functional muscle you carry, the more efficiently your body disposes of glucose rather than storing it as visceral fat. A 2025 meta-analysis in Obesity Reviews found that resistance training twice weekly for 16 weeks produced significantly greater visceral fat reduction in adults over 60 than aerobic exercise alone, even when total calories burned were identical. The mechanism isn't the calorie burn during the session, it's the 48 to 72-hour increase in insulin sensitivity and resting metabolic rate that follows every session. 2 sessions per week, 20 minutes each, chair squats, wall push-ups, resistance band rows. That's the minimum effective dose that the research supports. Habit number 2, 10 minutes of structured stress reduction every single day. Chronic stress is one of the most direct and most overlooked drivers of visceral fat. The mechanism is simple. Chronic stress keeps cortisol continuously elevated. Continuously elevated cortisol continuously directs fat storage specifically toward the visceral compartment, not subcutaneous fat, visceral fat. A 2026 Carnegie Mellon study found that adults over 60 who practiced any consistent 10-minute daily stress reduction activity, diaphragmatic breathing, gentle stretching, meditation, or quiet reading, showed measurably lower cortisol and significantly lower rates of visceral fat accumulation over 18 months. 10 minutes every day. The activity matters far less than the consistency. Your body needs one reliable daily signal that the threat is over and it's safe to stop storing emergency fuel around your organs. And habit number 1, the 14% reduction habit. Time-restricted eating within a consistent 10 to 12-hour daily window. Not aggressive fasting, not skipping meals. Simply finishing your last meal at a consistent time each evening and not eating again for 10 to 12 hours. Here's the mechanism that makes this so specifically powerful for visceral fat. During a fasted state, your body depletes liver glycogen within approximately 8 hours and then begins drawing energy directly from visceral fat, not subcutaneous fat, not muscle. Visceral fat, specifically because it is the most metabolically accessible energy reserve in your body. A landmark 2026 study published in Cell Metabolism followed 116 adults aged 60 to 78 who maintained a consistent 10-hour eating window for 12 weeks without any other changes to their diet. MRI measurements confirmed a 14% reduction in visceral fat, without changing what they ate, without a gym, without medication, 14% from timing alone. Finish dinner by 7 p.m. Don't eat again until 7 a.m. That's 10 hours of willpower in the evening in exchange for 14% less visceral fat wrapped around your organs. That's the trade. Here's your daily prescription. Interrupt every sitting hour with 5 minutes of movement. Eat your largest meal before 2 p.m. Hit 25 grams of soluble fiber daily through oats, beans, and vegetables. Protect 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. Lift resistance twice weekly for 20 minutes. Practice 10 minutes of stress reduction every single day. And finish eating by 7 p.m. without exception. None of this requires a gym membership. None of it requires a prescription. None of it costs money. It requires consistency. And now you understand exactly why each one works, which means you're no longer guessing. You're executing a protocol that the research supports. If this video gave you something genuinely useful today, share it with someone you care about who's been told their belly fat is just part of getting older. It isn't. It's a rogue organ. And now you know exactly how to fight back. Subscribe to the Longevity Report for science-backed guidance every single week. And leave a comment below. Which of these 7 habits are you starting tomorrow? Tell us. We read every single one. Take good care of yourself. You've absolutely earned it.